monitor smuggling of rice. I think that should be, at the minimum, returned to the NFA. The power to deputize law enforcement agencies so that we can check violations of the anti-economic sabotage law, anti-agri economic sabotage law. After all, they are in charge, of buffer stocking. Now, with respect to interventions such as, will we give them back the power to import? I'd like to review that. I have an open mind because during my time, we did put in place a transparent, accountable process of government-to-government importation, which actually led to a reduction of government purchases. Nakatipid tayo ng 7 billion in a period of four importations in a period of 1 year and a half. Basta may transparent process. We had a approved budget for contract, which was the first time in the history of NFA. Before we went into the government-to-government purchase or importations, we based the budget for the importation on the prevailing world market prices of rice. In other words, today the world prices of rice, I think, is about 380, no? About, yeah, 380, for example, $380 per metric ton. What we did then was we got the average of 3 rice price monitoring agencies, added $5 to $7 up or down, and that was our approved budget for contract. So if it was $380, the prevailing market prices today, we added about 5 to 7 pesos per metric ton, and that was the approved budget for contract. And so if it went higher than 387, then we will have a failed bidding. But anyway, we did that and we saved 7 billion. So we're amenable to looking at that, but of course the hearings, we'd like to know if they have the capacity now and if the DA has other proposals. With respect to also limiting the support to machinery, equipment, infrastructure, I think depending again on the situation, there has to be also a provision on outright cash assistance for our rice farmers taken, drawn from. There is a provision actually, but I'd like to increase. The experts then, I remember the debates, they were saying that given the impact of the flooding of imported rice into our local markets, there will really be losses on the part of our rice farmers. And that loss should be compensated by cash
transfer.
Cash transfer. So this policy we'd like to review, and I'm more than willing and open to increase the cash transfers should losses become such that you really need to intervene with direct cash assistance for our rice farmers.
Thank you for those answers, Mr. President. Perhaps one of the reasons why the provision on the non-importation role of the NFA is contained in the RTL. In short, it somehow took away the role of the NFA to import rice in the RTL of 2019 was the frustration of the previous chair of the Agriculture Committee with the NFA at that time. Okay, not to pass judgment, but collusion, corruption, hoarding, cartels, even with law enforcement agencies that you mentioned. I've been standing here, sitting there for over 25 years, Mr. President. These conversations have ensued, having been chairman also in my first term of the Agriculture Committee and the Agricom. And what was discussed 20 years ago has happened 10 years ago, could be happening now. How are we going to deal with that? Bring it back, they're allowed to import. No import, new law. Back because it didn't work, import again. We've tried all models. How are we going to solve the problem of hoarding, of really getting the smugglers out of the system, of the cartels being broken, of the prices really being favorable to the consumers, but also wag naman lugi ang ating rice farmers. And so that the Department of Agriculture is no longer called the Department of Importation.
Department of Angkat.
Department of Angkat. So, pardon me, Mr. President, Mr. Sponsor, for my, I don't want to seem negative, but I'm just speaking from more than 2.5 decades of experience here, and it just goes wrong. We will bring it back to NFA, and the same problems will ensue. Then we look back in the future and say, why did we change it? We did not give the RTL a chance. So may I just be guided? I know that you had just returned to the Senate, and you may answer me and say, let's take a look at it first.
Yes,
and I'm
yes.
willing to wait. Yes.
Yes. Thank you for that question, Madam Senator, Mr. Chairman. But you're right. Para tayong sirang plaka. Paulit-ulit. But I'd like to think that with this Senate, with my experience both in the executive and the legislative, and of course the support of the executive department, we may finally craft legislation, number one, that will address itong naging decades-old problem. We actually were able to do it when we were chairman of the NFA Council. Sabi nga nung isang I think a commentary, what's this? The golden age or the renaissance of the NFA? Because sabi ko nga, and it's on record, we achieved the lowest food prices inflation in 20 years. Has come down to that level. It's still high. Inflation, nationwide inflation is 1.7. 1.7. So it's low, which proves that if you manage rice properly, inflation will, nationwide inflation can be managed.
Maybe updated, Mr. President. What is our importation to date per latest figures?
Do we have?
How many metric tons of imported rice?
Yes. We will get the data, Madam Chairperson. We have asked although of course the policy today is that there is a halt on importation for 2 months.
Yes.
Up to September, but I understand it's going to be extended to October. So
Because I wanted to compare the wastage of rice. I recall in a hearing way back that there were measurements on how much rice we wasted in terms of food waste. When we keep rice on our plates, on our bowls, rice we don't consume, and
this is overall.
so much wastage. And there was a computation on an average of wasted rice as compared to the amount of importation. And if you balance it, you
Yes.
could actually save much
A
and
lot.
not even import.
Almost 2 million metric tons of rice actually are wasted.
Wasted.
And last year, was it last year? 4 million metric tons were imported in 2023.
So we could cut down importation then. if that-
4.7 million in 2024.
And 2 million on the average of
Yes,
wasted
and
rice.
over. Yes, about 15% of our rice supply is wasted, up to 15%.
So that campaign then, a large part of our campaign, aside from increasing agriculture yield and improving the lot of our farmers, would be to campaign against this wastage. And without doing much, then we divide or half our importation of rice, or even just rely on domestic rice supply. But I'll proceed now to the
Yes, just
RCEP. Yes.
place it on record. The last year, our rice sufficiency was where is that? 72%. No, and this 72% rice sufficiency, which means 28% was imported, more or less. But if it's 15% of wastage, meaning we lost about 15% of our local supply, then we would have only imported, so 72 plus 15, well, my math is, would be about 87% sufficiency, no? And then the rest will just be imported. Instead of importing 28%, then you'll...
And if you compute that to pesos and cents or US dollars, a lot of savings for government.
Definitely,
But
definitely.
that can be studied. And in fact, I'll join you in really a campaign for zero waste.
And part of the waste, Madam Senator, Mr. President, is also because of poor post-harvest.
Post-harvest facilities.
Kaya sa
Dryer,
niya yung highway.
kalsada.
Oo. Tapos pag nababasa, nabubulok
Yes.
dahil walang storage. So a
Yes.
a big amount of the savings that we can generate will be in investing in proper warehousing, proper drying facilities, silos. Ang hirap kasi sa warehousing natin, for example, and when we were chairman of the NFA Council then, wala tayong silos. So, yung pinasok mo na bigas o palay, nasa ilalim. Tapos yung susunod, nasa ibabaw. Pagka dalawang storya na yung taas ng bigas o yung palay, paano mo na kukunin yung sa ilalim? In other words, maraming wastage talaga unless you have silos wherein the first thing you put in will have to be the first thing you will take out. And therefore, the shelf life for palay is about 9 months. The shelf life for rice is about 6 months. So the first thing you bought in, you should dispose before the 6 months is over and the like. No? So again, warehousing is important to reduce losses.
So investment in post-harvest facilities and a more efficient system, which you just mentioned, which we know already, and should just be effectively and efficiently implemented.
The information is that since January to June 2025, we have imported 2.38 million metric tons.
Half a year, 2 million. So you're correct, more or less 4.7 in a year. And if the wastage because of poor post-harvest facilities is 2 million, we could have actually
Exactly.
saved.
Cut
on
it
that.
in almost
Cut it in half, yes. I go to the RCEP, which is divided into what? Credit facilities, into credit or loan for farmers, mechanization, seeds, ano pa ho ang binibigay? How is the RCEP divided? And in terms of percentages. So how much RCEP have we generated since the enactment of the law, let's say the past 5 years, and how did we divide it into seed production, mechanization, loans, and what are the other kinds of assistance
trainings.
and training?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I have a view here, Mr. President, that unless you get your farmers organized, as in capacitated, all these assistance can only go so far. Why do I say that? I met the farmers of San Simon, Pampanga. They're the San Nicolas Rice Farmers Co-op. They're an association. But their association is more of a paper organization. They don't have, they only trade palay. They don't have the capacity to mill. They don't have the capacity. Their financial literacy is limited, but they're an association. So you provide them with a loan, if they're not capacitated,